Hello and welcome to Narayana Eyes. I'm Pratik, your faculty for Daily News Analysis. Students, before we begin today's DNA, let us go through a motivational quote to boost your day. And what is a motivational quote? The quote says that bravery is acknowledging your fear and doing it anyway. Often we hear people saying that you should never acknowledge your fear. But the point is, bravery is when you acknowledge your fear, when you understand that this is the fear that you have and you work on that so as to overcome the fear. This is what we understand by bravery. So, accept your fault, accept your fear, work on that and overcome your fear. That is bravery, right? So, let's say for example, if you are having any issues with respect to any subject, or let's say optional paper, acknowledge the fear, work on it, overcome it and ace the examination, right? So on this note, let us understand the 5 topics that we shall be studying in today's DNA session. So before we understand the 5 topics that we shall be studying, Narayana has introduced 1 year and 2 year prelims cum means integrated courses for the students. So all those students who are serious and want to do something for the nation can enroll in this 1 year and 2 year prelims cum means integrated course where they'll be focused on holistic coverage of both prelims, means as well as the interview, the third round, right? So if you look at the course on your screen, you might see a QR code. Please scan the QR code and register yourself and our team will get back to you. So if you look at the 1 year and 2 year vertical program, here we have 800 plus hours of general studies and 200 hours will be allotted to the current affairs, right? So you'll have 4000 plus prelims and 1000 plus means questions. So in order to clear the UPSC examination, practicing questions is very important. And here Narayana has focused immensely on these practice questions. So every week you'll have a test. In order to understand if you have understood the content that has been taught in a week, we have tests. So these tests will help you to assess your preparation and fine tune your approach so as to score well in the weekly test and thus the final UPSC test, right? So again, those who are interested can enroll yourself by scanning the QR code on the screen, right? So these are the 5 topics that we shall be discussing in today's DNA. The first topic is taken from Hindu page number 10. Now here the Supreme Court has reaffirmed its commitment to eradicate manual scavenging. So why manual scavenging, is a major issue in our country is something that we'll be understanding in the first topic. We'll understand the observation of the Supreme Court, the observation of various committees, data, facts, the schemes introduced by the government of India to eradicate manual scavenging. So this is a topic that can be asked for mains examination. That's the reason this is the topic that we have chosen for mains, taken from Hindu page number 10. The second article is taken from Hindu page number 12. Now this article talks about a report published by International Labour Organization, and this organization highlighted the declining of rights with respect to freedom of association and collective bargaining. The third article is taken from Hindu page number 12. Now here this article states that India reported half of the malaria cases in Southeast Asia. So India is contributing to 50% of malaria cases in the Southeast Asia. This is the third topic. Fourth topic, here the Indian scientists have developed a new gene therapy, and this therapy is a long-term solution for a disease referred to as haemophilia. So, we will understand what is haemophilia and what are the reasons behind this disease and the solution. And finally, the last article, which is taken from Hindu page number 8, talks about right to assisted dying, right? So, what is this right to assisted dying is something that we shall be understanding day 5th topic. So, these are the 5 topics of the day. Let us understand each topic one by one. The first topic, the title is, will go to any extent possible to get rid of manual scavenging, is what the Supreme Court has referred, right? So, in this article, we'll understand what exactly is manual scavenging and data and facts surrounding this particular issue. And this topic is important for GS2 paper. In GS2 paper, we have a subtopic, important aspects of governance, and the second is vulnerable schemes or welfare schemes for the betterment of vulnerable sections, right? So, these are the subtopics that you can associate this particular topic, right? Now, a previous question was asked in the year 2018. Caste system is assuming new identities and associational forms, hence caste system cannot be eradicated in India. Comment. Now, the issue of manual scavenging is associated with caste system. So, in this question, a point was expected to be written with respect to manual scavenging. So, question can be directly asked on manual scavenging, or manual scavenging as a point can be included in your mains answer, right? So, let us start with the context. Recently, Supreme Court was hearing a batch of petitions, right? Now, here in this case, the Supreme Court reaffirmed, or Supreme Court committed itself to eradicate manual scavenging practice. So, this is what is manual scavenging. I hope looking at the picture, you must have understood what exactly one means by manual scavenging. Now, here the Supreme Court said that the Supreme Court will ensure to implement the judgment it gave in the year 2023. So, in the year 2023, the Supreme Court had given a judgment with respect to manual scavenging. In the 2023 judgment, the Supreme Court directed the central and the state governments to ensure all the laws and schemes meant for the betterment of the manual scavengers should be implemented in letter and spirit. For example, the compensation for the manual scavengers who died in the profession or in the work was raised from 10 lakh to 30 lakh. Right. So, in this 2023 judgment, the Supreme Court directed the central and the state governments to ensure that the laws or schemes meant for the manual scavengers are implemented in letter and spirit. This is the context. Now, we'll understand holistically about this issue of manual scavenging. yes, sorry for the technical glitch. Let's resume. So as said, the Supreme Court in the year 2023 judgment directed the union and the state government to implement all the measures meant for the betterment of the manual scavengers, right? Now, the first and foremost is, who are the manual scavengers and what exactly we understand by manual scavenging? Now, manual scavenging refers to, this definition refers to dehumanizing practice of cleaning human excreta manually. So this practice refers to manually cleaning human excreta from, let's say, dry latrines, sewerage systems, septic tanks, or railway tracks. So here people with their hands, bare hands, without any protection gear, they clean the human excreta from dry latrines and the sewerage system. This is referred to as manual scavenging. This is referred to as manual scavenging. Now this practice is associated with caste, which means a particular caste is predominant in this particular occupation of manual scavenging, especially the Dalits. So unfortunately, this practice or this occupation of manual scavenging, it is associated with certain castes, which actually is reinforcing the social hierarchies, which is very unfortunate. Right now, as of now, it is said that India has around 58,000 eligible manual scavengers. The one who do this work are referred to as scavengers. These are the number of people who are eligible to do manual scavenging work. Now, this dehumanized practice or inhuman practice is hindering our achievement with respect to sustainable development goals, with respect to dignity, health and sanitation. Which means, now sustainable development goals are the goals defined by the United Nations that every country has to achieve. For example, to live with dignity, respect. Now, can the manual scavengers who clean human excreta live with dignity? No. Do they have access to healthcare? No. Sanitation, they work in very dirty conditions. Which means, as the people are employed in manual scavenging, it is affecting our achievement with respect to sustainable development goals of dignity, health and sanitation. Now, this practice of manual scavenging, it contradicts all the international and the legal, or for that matter, domestic norms. Now, the international norms, or let's say practice, has criticized heavily the practice of manual scavenging. At the same time, the Indian law also bans the practice of manual scavenging. Despite the fact that the international norms and the domestic norms have called against the practice of manual scavenging, this inhuman practice is deeply prevalent or present in our country. Again, International Labour Organization, one of the significant organization or one of the significant organization of the United Nations, has also defined manual scavenging as a dehumanized work, or the people who are involved in it, they clean or manually clean the human excreta from public places, from, let's say, dry latrines, public streets, etc. And since 1993, as per the definition of ILO, this practice is banned. But unfortunately, despite the fact that in a country, the law bans the practice of manual scavenging. Despite so, this practice is deeply prevalent. Now, if I talk about the data on manual scavenging, now let us focus on the data on manual scavenging. Now, as per the census of 2011, as per the census of 2011, India has 8 lakh latrines. India has 8 lakh latrines where human excreta is cleaned manually. One data. The next, as per the 2013 and 18 surveys, 2013 and 2018 surveys of Ministry of Social Justice, India has 58,000 manual scavengers. 58,000 manual scavengers. Third data. Now, as of July 2023, as of July 2023, out of 760, out of 766 districts, 530 districts have declared themselves manual scavenging free. So, out of 766, 530 districts have declared themselves manual scavenging free. Right? Now, next, as per the Ministry of Social Justice, in between 2018 and 2023, in these 5 years, close to 430 people died because of their involvement in manual scavenging. So many people have lost their lives. This is the official number. This is the official number. The real number must be much more than this number. Why? Because the conditions are extremely inhumane. Now, working in, let's say, septic tanks, sewerage tanks, it releases harmful gas. The people inhale that gas, harmful gas, and that leads to the death of the manual scavengers. And unfortunately, this practice again is associated with the caste system, that is, few castes, especially the Dalits, are supposed or work or take up this job of manual scavenging. See, no one takes this job happily. At the end, everyone has to run their family. Everyone has to send money to their families. Now, in order to run the families, they need money. So, whatever work they can, they are doing the work, irrespective of the fact that this is extremely inhumane work. This is extremely inhumane work. And that's the reason it is very, very important that our country, right, we talk about, becoming the second, third largest economy. But what is the point of becoming the second or third largest economy when so many people are employed in the most inhumane work? Can you even imagine entering into a manhole, a drainage, immersing yourself completely in the manhole and cleaning the human excreta? It is utterly inhumane. We cannot even imagine. And there are thousands of people who are involved or engaged in this profession. This is very shocking, and we as a country should be utterly shameful that we, despite the fact that this is banned, this practice is prevalent in our country. I'm pretty sure you must have come across people entering the sewerage tanks and cleaning the drainage, right? Now, what are the factors contributing to the persistence of manual scavenging? The first one is inadequate sewerage infrastructure, which means we do not have a sewerage system which is comprehensive. In most part or most regions of our country, there is no comprehensive sewerage system. Now, because of the lack of sewerage system, people are forced to enter the drainage to clean the drain or to clean the waste because of the poor infrastructure. Imagine, India is the fourth richest country in the world, and India does not have basic infrastructure for the proper drainage. Second, caste-based occupational rules. As I told you, certain castes, especially the Dalits, are associated with this profession, and this reinforces social hierarchies. It limits social mobility. Now, as people are employed in this profession, right, this hinders their growth. This stops their growth. People discriminate against the manual scavengers. Third, limited employment alternatives. Now, as I told you, people are not doing this job out of their wish. Who likes to do such job out of the wish, right? So it is because of lack of employment opportunities, people are forced to take up this job. Now they do not have education, they do not have vocational training, and that's the reason they are helpless but to take up this job so as to feed their family. The next, severe health risks. Now the people who are engaged in manual scavenging are reported to be infected with several diseases: typhoid, cholera, respiratory organs failure. So these are the harmful diseases or health risks the manual scavengers are suffering from. So they are cleaning our dirt and they are playing with their lives. Why? Only to feed their family, their wives and their children. This is so unfortunate. Lack of protective equipment. Now, at least the government, or for that matter, the local administration should be, should have this humanistic approach, should have empathy for the people and give them the gears, protection gears, so that they can enter the sewerage with the help of protection. But unfortunately, there is no protection given. They have to enter without any protection. Violation of dignity and human rights. Now, right to live with dignity, with respect, is a fundamental right under Article 21. Now, India allowing such people to be engaged in this work, India is violating their fundamental right, which is the biggest crime. Social stigma. Now, people who are associated with this work, social stigma is associated with them, which means they are socially ostracized, which means they are socially boycotted. As these people do this work, inhumane work, people discriminate against them. And the discrimination, or for that matter, social banishment, social banish, boycott from the society leads to psychological distress. No one talks with them, no one, interacts with them. This leads to discrimination and it leads to overall psychological and health stress, which takes away the life, directly or indirectly. This is so unfortunate. These are the factors contributing to manual scavenging work. Next, now these are some of the constitutional protection, right, with respect to safeguarding the rights of the vulnerable sections of, for that matter, the manual scavengers. Now, Article 14 says that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. But in reality, are everyone equal? Please comment. Please answer in the comment box. So the constitution, the law says that everyone are equal in the eyes of the law. But unfortunately, no, not everyone are equal. People are discriminated on the basis of caste, religion, disability, gender. So this is really unfortunate. Article 7. Now Article 17, it abolishes untouchability. It abolishes untouchability. But unfortunately, despite this constitution provision, untouchability is practiced in our country. And again, manual scavenging is again associated with untouchability. Next, Article 21, right to live with dignity. Can the manual scavengers live with dignity? No. Again, violation of Article 21. Forced labor. Now, unfortunately, many people are forced to take up this job. Right? Now, as no other caste willingly takes up this job, certain caste people are forced to take this particular inhumane job, and this again violates Article 23 of the Indian Constitution. Then in India, we have made laws in order to eradicate the practice of manual scavenging, or punish the employers or punish the people who employ people to do this particular kind of inhumane work. These are the laws that India has framed in the year 1993 and 2013. Read the title: The Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrines Prohibition. So, this to employ manual scavengers is prohibited. Then again, prohibition of employment as manual scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act, which means the 13th Act says that you have to prohibit this particular work. Once you ban this work, the people who were previously engaged in manual scavenging, you have to rehabilitate them. Now, what do you mean by rehabilitation? Rehabilitation means to provide them certain skills so that they can be employed in other occupation, other meaningful occupation. So if people, let's say for example, if you're banning this practice, which is a livelihood, of course you should ban it, but then you also need to give them skills so that they can be employed in other professions or other occupation. These are the constitution and legal provisions under the Indian Constitution and Indian law. Then we also have DPSP, Directive Principles for State Policy. We already have seen this. DPSP. These are the directives given by the Constitution to the state. Now, this Article 46 states that promotion of educational and economic interests. The state has to promote the educational and economic interest. The state has to give education to the children of the manual scavengers, as well as give them alternative livelihood so that they can survive and feed their family. This is Article 46. Article 47 says that it is a duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and standard of living. So when it comes to standard of living, the manual scavengers do not live a standard life. So here the state has to ensure that every citizen, every person in our country enjoys a decent standard of living. Right? Now, in order to overcome the issue of manual scavenging, which are the steps India should be taking? One, legal mandates and compensation, right? Now, in the year 2014, right? In the year 2014, the Supreme Court directed that all the people, right? The Supreme Court directed that all the people who have died in the year 2014, the Supreme Court directed that all the people who have died in this occupation since 1993, the government has to give them a compensation of 10 lakh, which means a compensation of 10 lakh should be given to their families. One. Second, verification and immediate financial assistance. First, you have to verify, and you need to have a data on the number of manual scavengers. Post that, you have to give them financial assistance, and the government has given 40,000 one-time financial assistance of 40,000 to 58, approx 58,000 manual scavengers. Third, the Supreme Court directed that no state government or central government or local government can force a person to take up this job. You cannot force anyone to take up their job. Unfortunately, the reality is many people are forced to take up this job. Third, fourth, now skill development and rehabilitation. Now, if you want to, right, if you want to eradicate manual scavenging, then you need to ensure that you need to skill the people or give vocational training to the manual scavengers so that you can provide them alternative livelihood, right? So, close to 22,000 manual scavengers, close to 22,000 manual scavengers have registered themselves in the skill development program. Then the next is Namaste scheme. Now, under this Namaste scheme, the government encourages, or this scheme encourages the cities to mechanize, that is, to use machines for the cleaning of drains. So, rather than employing people, please use machines so that this inhuman practice can be completely eliminated. And for that, the government in the budget 23-24, the government has allocated 100 CR, right? Now again, for example, when it comes to financial and development support, we have National Safai Karmacharis Finance and Development Corporation. Now, this corporation provides financial assistance to the manual scavengers. For example, the assistance is given to promote the socio-economic development, to promote social and economic development. Then, under this scheme for rehabilitation, these people are given training so that they can be accommodated in alternative livelihood. These are some of the schemes. Now, all the steps or schemes that the government of India has taken. So, these are some of the initiatives. I request you to please open the link in the comment box. This is self-explanatory. So, I request you to please open the link in the comment box. This link will take you to our website wherein you can read in detail all the points, all the initiatives. So that in the answer, your answer can be as holistic as possible. So in this topic, we have included data, we have included the observation of Supreme Court, then we understood the factors, then we understood the solutions, and then we also have understood the initiative steps taken by the government of India. And here, now we have these initiatives. These are the initiatives that have recommended certain steps for the eradication of manual scavenging. So this was formed in the year 1949. So I request you to please remember the names, right? So these are the names of the committees which you have to remember. That's it. This was the first topic. I hope you have understood each and every dimension covered in the first topic. Let us focus on the second topic. So the question that we have received is, are manual scavengers or scavenging there in other countries too? See, you often see the occupation with respect to manual scavenging in the developing or let's say poor countries. So yes, manual scavenging does exist in other countries as well. For example, the African continent, then the sub-Saharan region, few pockets and regions in the Asian continent. So yes, this practice is prevalent in other countries too. Unfortunately, yes, it is not. I mean, you don't have to remember as such, but yes, you can just go through it. Going through it, revising it will help you to remember all the committees, right? So in case you get a question, let's say for example, this committee recently seen in the news is associated with which of the following occupation? Such question can be asked. So if you just go through it, few times, it will help you to remember the committees and their recommendations. Now the second topic. International Labour Organization report asks nations to uphold freedom of association and collective bargaining. This is the topic. So in this article, we'll understand about the body ILO and we'll understand the report ILO has published. Now, a question was asked in the year 2017 on one of the important or specialized body of United Nations. So this is the body. United Nations Economic and Social Council is the name of the specialized body of the United Nations. Similarly, International Labour Organization is one of the specialized body of the United Nations. So questions can be expected on such specialized bodies of the United Nations. That's the reason we need to know exactly what this institution stands for. The context. Let's start with the context. Now, recently, International Labour Organization ILO released a report with the name Social Dialogue Report. Now, this report called the governments, which means it pushed the governments, it encouraged the governments to ensure or strengthen their commitment with respect to upholding the fundamental rights at work. Now, which are these fundamental rights? One, the freedom of association, and the second is collective bargaining. This report has pushed or nudged the government to ensure that the fundamental right at work should be implemented. Why? Because these rights, actually, the ILO, through its study, got to know that these rights are declining, and that's the reason ILO pushed the government to ensure that the fundamental right to form association and collective bargaining should be implemented in letter and spirit. This is the context. First and foremost, let us understand what is ILO. Now, few facts that you need to remember for your examination, right? Headquarter. Now, these are the points that you need to remember for your examination. The headquarter of ILO is situated in Geneva. Where is Geneva? It is in Switzerland. It is one of the specialized bodies of the United Nations. Now, ILO came into being in the year 1919. In the year 1919, the Treaty of, now this Treaty of Versailles was signed after the end of First World War. This treaty, right? Now, what are the core responsibilities? Which means, what does this body do? ILO, it set standards, with standards, labor standards. It sets labor standards, which means that what should be the conditions under which the labor should be working. Labor standards, for example, minimum wage, working condition, rights of the laborers. So these standards the ILO sets for all the countries, and all the countries are expected to meet the labor standards. One. Then it also designs policies and programs for the betterment of the laborers or the employees, which means in order to ensure that the rights and the life of the employees is protected, there are certain standards set by the ILO which each and every country is expected to abide by, right? So this is the core responsibility, that is to look after the welfare of the employees or the laborers, right? Then Now this is the only tripartite structure. Tri, that is three. It involves three factions. One, the government. Second, the employers, the one who provides jobs. Third one is the workers. So in this structure, the representatives of the government, the companies and the workers all participate in the meetings of ILO. So I request you to remember all these points. Each and every point is important for the prelims examination. Now, what are the objectives of ILO? One, as I told you, it sets standards and principles. Now, these are the standards and principles based on which the rights of workers are protected and adhered by. So, as I told you, working conditions, minimum wage, rights of workers, or which are the rights? Right to association, collective bargaining. So, these are the rights or standards that the ILO sets. Next, next, the another objective of ILO is to create sufficient opportunities for the men and women for decent employment and income. Working in a company or a factory doesn't mean that you should be exploited. That's the reason this ILO also ensures that alternative employment opportunities are created for men and women for decent employment, which means the employment should respect your dignity. And secondly, it should also ensure that you get decent minimum wage through which you can meet your basic requirements. And then social protection. It ensures that people are socially protected, which means the factory, the company they work in should help them, should provide them pension after retirement, insurance, death insurance, which means it ensures that the social protection coverage is extended to all the workers and employees. These are the objectives. Now, this is very, very important for your examination. These are the two important reports published by the ILO. So, this again a simple question. Global Wage Report is published by which of the following organizations? Four options. So, I request you to please remember these reports. And these are the 8 fundamental conventions of ILO. No need to remember, but just go through it. If you just keep on going through it, it will help you to remember the conventions. Just, before examination, you can simply go through all these conventions. Now, from 2020 onwards until 2021, India was chairing the governing body of ILO, which means India was the chairman, or India was holding the position of the chairmanship from 2020 until 2021 of the governing body, right? Now, of all the conventions, India has not signed these two conventions. Of all the conventions, India has not signed these two conventions. Which are these conventions? Freedom of association and protection of the right to organize convention and right to organize and collective bargaining. So please remember these two conventions because questions again can be asked. Why India has not signed? Maybe a question can also be asked on the reason why India has not ratified this convention, because see, all the laws in our country that govern the government employees or that regulate the government employees prohibit the right to strike and criticize the government policies too. Right to strike, this is not a fundamental right. The government employees do not have this right to strike. Right to strike and to criticize government policies. Because if India ratifies these two conventions, India will be under obligation to provide the government employees with the right to strike and to criticize the government policies. So if the government employees start criticizing the government policies, who will work for the government? That's the reason India has not, enabled the government employees with these rights, right? Now, as I told you, recently, International Labour Organization released Social Dialogue Report. Now, this report focuses on the rights at work. For example, this report called for upholding freedom of association, freedom of association and collective bargaining and collective bargaining, which means everyone should have the right to form association to represent their interests. For example, and collective bargaining. Let's say you want to demand an increase of your wage from your employer. So, if you are asking or demanding in an isolated manner, individually, maybe the employer might not listen. But let's say you are teaming up, you are coming together, this is known as collective bargaining. So, let's say you say to the employer that it's been 2 years, we are working in the company and our salary has not been increased. So, if you come together and collectively bargain with the employer, there are higher chances that your salary or wage will be increased. That's the reason it is important to come together, form associations and collectively bargain with the government and your employer so as to meet your basic demands. Next, strengthening social dialogue. What is social dialogue? That you interact with the various stakeholders, right? Now, in order to strengthen social dialogue, right? The government should equip the labor administration, the administration that looks after the laborers, to ensure that they help the employees with resources and capabilities. Resources and capabilities. So you need to have resources and you should be capable enough to dialogue or to have interaction with the relevant stakeholders. That's the reason the government should equip the labor administration with resources and capabilities. Third, social dialogue for inclusive transitions. Transition. For example, we are heavily dependent or reliant on the fossil fuels, but now we are progressing towards a low carbon energy, which means we are ensuring to reduce the carbon emissions. That's the reason we are adopting new technology. For example, EV cars, or we are transitioning to digital economy, which means we are adopting technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning. Now, in this transition, maybe people might lose their jobs. That's the reason this social dialogue is important, so as to ensure that while we are transitioning to low carbon economy or digital economy, all the stakeholders are consulted with and take a solution that can benefit each and every one. Next, underrepresented groups. Now, the groups that are vulnerable or weak, it is important to ensure that even such underrepresented groups are also involved in the meetings so as to ensure their demands and rights are met. Navigating global challenges. Navigating global challenges. Now, this social dialogue report focuses on the importance of social dialogue, which means social dialogue is a key governance model, it is very important part of governance. Now, which are the global challenges? For example, climate change, right? Then technological, which means we are adopting more and more technology. At the same time, the demographic shifts. Now, in this global challenges, to navigate through the global challenges, to find a way in the global challenges, climate change, transitioning to, let's say, adopting new technology, right? It is important that we focus on social dialogue through which we can interact with the government and the employers to ensure that your rights are protected and you're not, terminated or, let's say, removed from your jobs, right? Now, if I talk about India, right, we discuss about right to association and right collective bargaining. Now, right to association is a fundamental right under Article 19. So, freedom of association is a fundamental right under Article 19, which means you have the right to assemble peacefully. You can't assemble to create nuisance or break law and order. No. You have the right to assemble, but it has to be for peaceful purpose, right? Now, collective bargaining. See, the collective bargaining as such is not explicitly mentioned in the constitution, right? Now, it is implicit in the right under Article 19, which is freedom of association. We understood what is collective bargaining, right? Which means the Industrial Dispute Act, or let's say the Trade Union Act. These are the acts that provides framework for the establishment of trade union. What is trade union? It is one form of association. Now, these trade unions can come together. For example, you must see that the trade unions or the unions of the farmers, they protest. Why? Because they want some of their demands to be met or the government to meet their demands. So, collective bargaining or freedom of association is a part of our constitution. Association fundamental right and collective bargaining is implicit in Article 19. So, these are the constitutional provisions in the Indian Constitution. Now, let us focus on the third topic. What is the third topic? Indian scientists develop novel gene therapy to provide one-time solution for hemophilia. This is the title. In this article, we'll understand hemophilia disease and the solution. That is the gene therapy. And this is important for both prelims as well as means under science and technology. A question was asked on Zika virus in the year 2017. So, the question can also be asked on hemophilia, right? That's the reason when it comes to important diseases, it is important to know certain, key points associated with certain diseases. Now, what is the context? The scientists of a country have developed one-time gene therapy. Now, this is a permanent and long-lasting solution for a rare disease referred to as hemophilia A. Right? It is one of the type of the disease hemophilia. What is hemophilia? Now, hemophilia is a genetic bleeding disorder. It's a genetic bleeding disorder. Now, for example, let's say when your skin gets a cut, you start bleeding, and then within some time, the blood clots so as to prevent the flow of blood. But this hemophilia is a genetic, breeding or bleeding disorder, which means the blood clotting phenomenon does not happen in the people who are suffering from hemophilia. This leads to excessive blood flow, which can also take away the life of a person. So, blood clotting is very, very important, especially after an injury or a cut, so as to prevent the excess blood. All right. Now, there are two types of hemophilia. One is hemophilia A and the other one is hemophilia B. Hemophilia A is referred to as classical and the other one is Christmas and classical. Now, haemophilia A occurs, why? Because of the deficiency of factor 8. Factor 8 and this factor 9. Now, factor 8 and factor 9, these are the proteins responsible for clotting of blood. So, because of these deficiencies, factor 8 and factor 9, it leads to a situation where the blood clot does not happen, leads to excessive flow of blood. These are the two types of hemophilia A and B. The WHO reported that of all the hemophilia cases, hemophilia A contributes to 80% of the overall cases and rest hemophilia B. So, of all the hemophilia cases, 80% is because of hemophilia. Now, India has the second largest population of hemophilia. It is reported that India has 40,000 to 1 lakh cases of people or patients who are suffering from hemophilia. Right? These are few stats. Now, let us try. So, these are some of the data or facts related to hemophilia. Now, let us try to understand the causes. As I told you, it's a genetic bleeding disorder, which means this hemophilia is inherited from the parents, of course, right? Now, it is very important for your prelims examination. Now, this hemophilia is caused because of passing of, or it is passed through the X chromosome. Now, the males have a higher chance of hemophilia. Why? Because the males have a chromosome X and Y and the females have chromosome XX. Now, let's say they have X and Y chromosome. Now, if this X, as I told you, hemophilia passes through X chromosome. So, if genetically, if a person inherits this faulty X chromosome, that person suffers from hemophilia A. With respect to females, even if one chromosome is faulty, the other one is normal. And this chromosome helps to clot the blood. Now, in rarest of the rare case, both these chromosomes can be defective and a female can also be subjected to hemophilia. So, important to remember is that hemophilia is caused because of X chromosome. It's a genetic disorder or genetic disease, right? Now what is the treatment? Traditional treatment. One is clotting factor infusions. For example, we discussed that hemophilia A is caused because of factor 8 and factor 9, A and B. So, the traditional treatment is that the deficiency or this protein is injected into the patient suffering from hemophilia. One. Second, now plasma, right? Plasma treatment is another treatment. Now, plasma is taken from the blood and this plasma is infused or injected into the people suffering from hemophilia. So, these are the traditional treatments, but the cost is extremely high. It amounts to crores of rupees. That's the reason this was not a sustainable solution. That's the reason the Indian scientists have come up with a solution of gene therapy. That is, they are going or they are finding the root cause. What is the root cause? It is the genes. So the Indian scientists are trying to work on the gene itself. Rather than external treatment, India has been successful to develop gene therapy. It's a one-time solution. You do not require regular medications or treatment. It's a one-time solution. Of course, it has long-term benefits. What is the solution? One, you replace the faulty gene with a new gene. As I told you, chromosome, X chromosome. You replace that faulty chromosome and replace it with new chromosome. Or what you can do is, you can simply inactivate the faulty chromosome. The chromosome that is faulty is simply inactivated. And third, you introduce a new gene and replace the old gene. Right? So this is referred to as gene therapy, where the faulty gene is replaced or it is inactivated. This is the solution that the Indian scientists have found out to a rare disease referred to as haemophilia. Right? This is the third topic. I hope you understood the third topic as well. Now let us focus on the fourth topic. What is the fourth topic? India reported half of malaria cases in Southeast Asia in 2023. Now, we'll understand about the malaria report 2024, right? And the disease malaria. So again, a question was asked in 2010. Widespread resistance of malarial parasite to drugs like chloroquine has prompted attempts to develop a malarial vaccine to combat malaria. So question has been asked on malaria. So let us try to understand. So World Malaria Report of 2024 was released by World Health Organization. So this is the report, right? What is the report? Let us understand. Now the 2023 report states that the world had seen 263 malaria cases and close to 6 lakh death because of malaria. 6 lakh death and 263 million malaria cases. One. Of all the deaths, that is of all the 6 lakh deaths, 95 deaths were confined to only one continent, that is the African region. This affected the young children and the pregnant women. Right? The most suffered region in the African continent was the sub-Saharan region, which comprises the northern and the western part of Africa. Now, because since 2010 or 20, sorry, because of 2000, right? Because of advanced healthcare, this healthcare or timely intervention of medicines or medical healthcare helped 2.2 billion cases and 12.7 million deaths, which means the solution is that if we focus on proper healthcare, we can avert or we can prevent the malaria cases and the deaths, right? Now, this Southeast Asia region, Southeast comprises of countries like Malaysia, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, then Indonesia, Singapore, right? The Southeast Asia contributes to 1.5% of the global malaria cases, right? Which means the Southeast Asia is contributing 1.5%, right? Now, in this 1.5%, India is contributing 50% and Indonesia 33. So, which means India and Indonesia, both these countries account for 83% of malaria cases. And India and Indonesia, they contribute to 88% of malaria deaths. So these are the two countries responsible for the higher prevalence of malaria cases and deaths. But since 2010 or 2000, because of timely medical intervention, India has been successful to reduce 93% or there's 93% decline in the malaria cases and 17.7 million fewer cases since 2000, right? These are some statistics which you can quote and mention in the examination. Now, which are the challenges and barriers? One, funding gaps. Now, funding is very important, which means the countries like India and Indonesia, they are falling short of funds, which means the funds that is necessary to ensure that malaria cases are not on rise, we are falling short of funds. One. The second is the healthcare weakness. Health system, which means poor healthcare infrastructure. Go to the government hospitals, you'll get to know the conditions of the healthcare facilities in our country, or you must have experienced during the COVID the way people were suffering outside the hospitals, right? Then the absence of healthcare workers, right? So we are falling short of healthcare workers. So health system weakness is another reason. Third, socio-environmental factors, like for example, natural disasters, climate change. So these are some of the factors that worsens the malaria cases, right? Now, recommendation, it's simple that WHO has recommended in robust data system, Now, this data is important, right? This data is important. Only if your data we can, intervene with adequate policies. Now, the WHO has recommended that we need to make investments in the data. So, once we have robust data, we can work on that report data and ensure that we fight against the increasing number of malaria cases. Right? So, emphasis on equity, gender equality and human rights in malaria innovation. Now, this part is very important about malaria. Now, malaria is a mosquito-borne disease caused by Plasmodium parasite. So, all these Plasmodium parasite is a key term that you have to remember for your prelims examination. There are 5 species of Plasmodium parasites, out of which P. falciparum and P. vivax, these are the most dangerous. So, please remember these names. Now, falciparum is predominant in the African region and vivax in the sub-Saharan Africa, right? And the other species responsible for malaria are this, and this. So, again, you don't have to mug up before examination. If you just revise it twice, thrice, all these names will be fit, or it will fit into your mind, right? So, make sure that before examination, you're just simply going through this species of parasites. Now, it is transmitted through the bite of female Anopheles mosquito carrying the infection. So, if this mosquito bites a person who is suffering from malaria or having malaria, these mosquito will be infected, and when this mosquito bites another human being, this is how the parasite transfers or spreads from one person into another person through the blood stream. These are the key terms. So, blood transfusion and contaminated needles may also transmit malaria. So, all these points are very important for your prelims examination. So, whenever I say that this is important for your prelims, please make a note. You can take the copy from the DNA notes, or you can also refer to a magazine, Navigator magazine, wherein you will have the content available for this particular topic. What are the symptoms? So, again, all these points are very important for your prelims. Symptoms are flu-like illness, shaking chills, headache, muscle aches and tiredness. Treatment, anti-malarial drugs, for example, quinine and chloroquine. So, these terms are again very important. Notifiable disease in India. In 33 states and union territories, this is a notifiable disease. Now, notifiable disease is that disease wherein the local governments or authorities have to report to the government that this is a, or this is a common disease in the region or in the state, right? And then these are the initiatives. Now you can simply remember these initiatives. Please uh, open the link in the comment box and read the initiatives the WHO has recommended or initiated, or for that matter the Indian initiatives initiated to eradicate the malaria disease, right? So this was the next topic. So I hope you understood this particular topic. Now, the last topic, the long and complex road to assisted dying. Right to assisted dying. What is the context? The context is that in the lower house of the British, that is House of Commons, one MP introduced a bill. And what is the name of the bill? Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill 2024-2025. Now, this bill helps a person who is terminally ill to end his or her life. Now, who is a terminally ill patient? Terminally ill patient is that patient who is suffering from a disease for which there is no remedy, or the chances of survival are least, which means there is no chance of survival. Max to max that person can survive for 6 months or 1 year. This condition is referred to as terminally ill patients, the patients who cannot survive more than, let's say, 6 months or 1 year. And in order to have a dignified death, that is a death without pain or without suffering. So which one would you choose? Death with suffering or death without suffering? So most of them will suffer or will choose death without suffering. So if you are to die, why to suffer? So if you are suffering from, let's say, a disease or cancer for which death is inevitable, right? Why to suffer? Anyways, you're going to die. So how does it matter if you're going to die after, let's say, 2 months or 3 months or 4 months? Max to max, you might survive for 6 months. But in the 6 months, you might have to go through unbearable pain. So you choose death without suffering. And in order to allow such terminally ill patients to end their life, the British MP in the lower house has introduced a bill. This is, and this bill gives the rights to terminally ill patients, which right? Right to choose assisted death. Right to choose assisted death. So please remember this right. Now, what prompted the MP to introduce a bill? Now, this is a very shocking incident. This MP, the MP who initiated the bill or introduced the bill, referred to a story, a real story that he had witnessed he or he was known to. And what was the story? So this 47-year-old music teacher, was suffering from a rare cancer because of which there was a blockage in the bowel movement, which means he was not passing his stools, right? For days and months, he was not passing his stools. Why? Because his blockage in the bowel movement. So he was suffering from some sort of cancer. And time and again, he was vomiting, and the vomiting was very, very violent. Now, a point came in his journey when he vomited the fecal matter. Imagine the pain as he was not passing the, the this blockage in the bowel movement, right? A point came wherein he vomited the fecal matter, and that incident or that situation choked his life, choked his breathing, and that ended his life. And the horror with which the patient had to endure or the family had to see was horrible. This incident prompted the MP to introduce a bill to allow terminally ill patients to die with dignity. Aim of the bill is to allow people who are terminally ill to die with dignity, which means before a person can take away his life, that will be reviewed and approved by two doctors and high court judge. So if a person cannot survive more than, let's say, 6 months or 1 year, and once it is reviewed by two doctors and one high court judge, the terminally ill patient can will have the right to die. The issue is very complex. Now, of course, a person who is suffering from so much pain, right? What we think or what we feel is, yes, the government should allow him to die with dignity. But the issue is not as simple as as we think or we feel. Why? Because let's say, for example, there are, or this issue is connected to, let's say, certain legal, moral as well as ethical considerations. And what is it? And what is that? Let's say, for example, in many societies or in many traditions, in many religions, right to life is very, very valuable. Certain beliefs, certain religions hold right to life, so which means if you are born onto this planet, you have to preserve your life. Life is very, very precious. And if the life is very, very precious, right, you do not have the right to take your life, or anyone, no one has a right to take your life. So this is one ethical consideration. The other one, let's say, legal. Now, when it comes to law, right to live is a constitution provision. The constitution, the legal provisions allow a person to live with dignity, but there's no legal provision that allows a person to die. This is another complexity. Third, moral responsibility. Now, whenever doctor, completes his education or starts practicing, he takes a vow. The doctors, they take a vow to preserve the life of a patient. So, preserving the life of the patient is the fundamental duty of every doctor. So, if this is the fundamental duty of every doctor, how can a doctor assist a person to take his or her life? So, this is another moral dilemma that doctors have to face. So, this is, the complexity associated or linked with the issue. Now, lack of choice for terminally ill patients. So, question is, if a person wants to, end his life. So, why is it that we prevent that person from ending his life? Yes, there are, there might be chances wherein few people might force a person to end his life. Which means, if such law is brought into practice, there can be or there might be chances where this law can be misused. Yes, this is one challenge. But if a person is suffering from so much pain, unbearable pain, then the person should have the right to end his life. Right? So, this is the topic, or this was the essence of that particular topic. Now, given the patients or people in our country who are suffering, suffering from, let's say, cancer or a rare disease for which there is no remedy or there is no solution, that person might survive, let's say, for 6 months or 1 year. Yes, India should also think or contemplate of bringing such a law to ensure that the terminally ill patients have the right to die with dignity. This was the fifth topic. I hope you understood the fifth topic as well. Now, students, it's time to discuss few questions, right? Question number 1. Discuss the constitutional, legal and policy measures taken to eradicate manual scavenging in India. How effective have these measures been in addressing the root causes of the practice? You can start your answer in the introduction by highlighting what the Supreme Court reported recently and the 2023 judgment. In the body of the answer, you can highlight the factors that lead to the cases of manual scavenging. Followed by that, you can highlight certain data with manual scavenging. So, you can mention data data associated with manual scavenging. Then you can also mention certain, let's say, observation of the reports, observation of the committee, right? Then finally, it is very important that you mention the steps the government has initiated, right? The government has initiated to eradicate manual scavenging, right? And then conclusion, again here it is important to mention that as this is inhumane practice, we have to adhere or abide by the constitutional and legal provisions and in spirit practice or end the practice of manual scavenging. This is how you can complete your answer. The detailed answer you will find in the daily notes, the link which is mentioned in the comment box. Now, let us discuss the questions based on the topics that we discussed yesterday, right? Arrange the following in descending order of their share in India's total energy mix in terms of installed capacity. Now, yesterday, with the help of a picture, right, image, we explained you the contribution of every sector in India's energy mix. So here, if you see, the question is descending order. So of all the types of power or renewable sector, solar energy contributes the most. It is 45% close to, followed by wind power, wind energy, followed by biopower, and then we have this small hydro. So 1, 2, 4 and 3. So A has to be the correct option. There's a diagram picture in the DNA notes. So I request you to download the DNA notes from our website, right? You will find the diagram through which you can easily attempt this particular question. Now this one. Following observations were made by the Supreme Court of India in a landmark judgment with respect to internet shutdown. So access to the internet is the fundamental right under Article 19. Restrictions on internet access must be lawful, necessary, proportionate and temporary. Orders imposing internet restrictions must be subject to judicial review and public disclosure. So all this observation was made by the Supreme Court in the Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India case. Very simple question. And then these are the questions based on today's topics. One is the ILO, the second one is malaria, and the third one is haemophilia. So again, I request you to please open the link of the quiz in the comment box, attempt the questions and post your score in the comment box. Right? Make sure you are practicing these questions. Only these practice questions will help you to clear your examination. So always have this habit of practicing as many questions as possible. Right? So students, that's it from our DNA session. I hope you have enjoyed watching all the 5 topics that we have discussed in today's DNA. I hope you have made notes and you have understood every dimension that we have covered in these 5 topics. Any topic, any point that you have not understood from the DNA notes, I request you to please ask in the comment box. We'll make sure that we address your questions and all your concerns. Make sure to enroll in the 1-year and 2-year online course by scanning the QR code mentioned on your screen. Right? So again, before I call it a wrap, I request you to please hit the like, share and subscribe button. Thank you so much.